I really wanted to take this opportunity to thank all my colleagues for sponsoring this bill, and Councilmember Rice for being a co-sponsor. Also want to thank Councilmember President Katz and Councilmember Albornoz, who I know held 2 work sessions on this bill and entertained the amendments that I recommended, and were able to adopt those amendments during those 2 work sessions. It's important for me to, again, frame how this bill came about. As Council President last year, we had a lot of really, I think, fruitful conversations regarding the police chief selection process. And there were many forums in the community where a lot of conversations center around this notion of community policing. And it was literally one of those terms that just began to, as they say in social media, trend. This notion of community policing. What does it mean? What does it mean for different communities? What is the perception of community policing? Are the things that we are doing actually considered to be the most effective way to practice community policing, et cetera? So there were a lot of different opinions about this. And I have to say that finally, during a particular meeting with the FOP and some community groups, it occurred to me that in a year where it was important to establish a lot of frameworks, and we did a lot of that in other areas, maybe it was time for us to then take up this issue of community policing and be able to at least provide a framework. And this bill is a framework. This bill is not prescriptive. It basically provides a framework that then, once we adopt it, the executive can work on regulations along with the community organizations. We do also have the community, the Policing Advisory Commission, the FOP. All of those stakeholders can then really come together and provide necessary input for how this particular framework can be implemented. And so that's where the real, I think, important work will happen. And I say that because I know that there was a lot of social media back and forth right before we adopt, this bill was taken up last week. But I just want it for the record to know that, I spent a lot of time meeting with a lot of different community groups, including the group Standing Up for Racial Justice. And I so much appreciated their input, because many of the amendments that I put forth during the Public Safety Committee work sessions came from them. And they were so important because they really strengthened the bill. So we really did work together to ensure that this framework would truly reflect, I think, the best possible scenario for all of us. So again, I want to emphasize that, because I know there was a lot of back and forth about, should we wait, should we table it, should we withdraw it, et cetera. And I feel very strongly that our advisory groups provide such important and positive, productive input, and we will take that into consideration. But ultimately, it is up to us as the legislative body to move forward in our particular legislative agenda, and I feel strongly that this will complement all the work that's happened. As a matter of fact, Councilmember Jawando's amendment really, I think, strengthens the Policing Advisory Commission legislation. And so it's great how those things also work, and I think that in the end, this will be, once again, a real positive step forward for us in Montgomery County. So again, just really want to thank all my colleagues. Want to thank Councilmember Rice. It was funny because, I had started to work on the bill, and then I think it was during one of the public hearings on the Police Advisory Commission that he said, I think we need a community policing bill. And I was like, yeah, I'm working on one. And so let's do it together. And it's great because that's how we work here. I mean, we work collaboratively, we try different things. And I think where we've landed in terms of the amendments, I believe this is a really step forward. And I know for a fact that it will only be strengthened once the regulations come along. Thank you so much, Council President.